Great, he was an Egyptian and lived in the 5th century, a great monastic, and he did a lot to develop monasticism after the time of St. Anthony in Egypt. And he had a friend who was also called Macarius, and he lived in Palestine, and he did the same thing in Palestine. So we have two St. Macariuses. Now this homily is attributed to a St. Macarius. I'm not sure which one it is. The book doesn't actually say so. But I suspect it might well be St. Macarius the Great of Egypt. And here it is. The heading is, Woe to the soul which has not Christ dwelling within it. There, a solitary thought. Here we go. As once God was angry with the Jews and gave Jerusalem over to a spectacle of its enemies, and as those who hated them ruled over them, and there was no longer there any feast or sacrifice, so being angry with the soul for its transgression of his command, and God handed over to its enemies, who seduced it and utterly deformed it. Just as a house which has no master dwelling in it is dark, neglected and despised, and is filled with dirt and filth, so a soul which does not have its Lord feasting within it with angels is filled with darkness and sin, the shame of passions, and every sort of disgrace. Alas for the street in which no one walks, in which the voice of man is not heard. It is a lurking place for wild beasts. Alas for the soul in which the Lord does not walk, and put to flight by his voice the spiritual beasts of wickedness. Alas for the house in which its master does not dwell. Alas for the land which no longer no farmer to till it. Alas for the ship which has been abandoned by its steersman. It is tossed about by the winds and the waves of the ocean, and perishes. Alas for the soul which does not have its true steersman as Christ dwelling in it. It lives in a bitter darkness of sea, and is tossed by the waves of the passions. It is buffeted by the wicked spirits, as by winter tempests, and finally it comes to destruction. Alas for the soul which is without Christ, to cultivate it, so that it will bring forth the fruits of the Spirit. When it is deserted, it becomes full of thorns and thistles, and finally its harvest is not one of fruit, but of destruction by fire. Alas for the soul which has not Christ for its Lord dwelling within it. For when it is deserted and filled with the stench of passion, it becomes a den of vice. When a farmer sets out to till the ground, he has to take proper tools and clothing for the work of the fields. So when Christ, the heavenly King and the true husbandman, came to humanity, laid waste by sin, he clothed himself in a body and carried the cross as his implement, and cultivated the deserted soul. He pulled up the thorns and thistles of evil, and tore up the weeds of sin, and with fire he burnt up all the harvest of its sins. And when this he had filled the ground of the soul with the wooden plough of his cross, he planted it in a lovely garden of the Spirit, a garden which brings forth for God as its master the sweetest and most delightful fruit of every sort. There.
Alright.